Hi everyone, this is Jonathan Leong's son from Infotek Consulting. Today we'll be walking you through the current landscape of quality management and introducing Deltek's quality management and shop floor execution solution, TIPQA. For the agenda, here is a list of everything that we'll be covering today. In short, we'll be providing some industry insights, an introduction to TIP technologies, its capabilities, including a short demo, and lastly, a brief walkthrough of the implementation process. Leading today's webinar will be Will Biglin, a principal solutions engineer at Deltek, and Manny Stevenson, who is the senior TIPQA consultant at Infotek Consulting. Now I'll hand the reins over to Will to introduce himself and begin our discussion around quality management and TIP technologies.
Thank you, Jonathan. So once again, my name's Will Biglin. I'm a principal solutions engineer with Deltek, but prior to working at Deltek, I was in industry using this QMS tool out in the field. So hopefully I'll provide some good insights for you all today as we go through the webinar. So the first thing I wanted to touch on was barriers to delivering high quality products. There's quite a few different things that companies run across when they're trying to go through their manufacturing process that can really stymie them. Manual or inconsistent processes, outdated and paper-based systems, poor supplier quality, compliance and audit complexities, overall high cost of quality, and then scaling their existing systems to new business demands. Those generally are tough things for folks to deal with in a manual system. And that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. How can we help with that? In Deltek's 2025 Clarity Survey, we found out that quality control is one of the number one challenges that organizations are facing. It always just about ranks in the top three every year we conduct this survey. 58% of the surveyed participants noted that it was a lack of automation that was making it so that manual processes were dominating the entire manufacturing and quality setup. And that cost of quality is a key performance indicator that about 35% of the surveyed participants were focused on. Supply chain is another high risk area. It was actually ranked number one, and that's another thing that TIP does help with in the overall ecosystem, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So, what is the impact of unaddressed quality challenges? Many of you probably already know quite a bit of this, but essentially, if you have quality processes that are kind of out of control, you can have, of course, increased cost of quality. There's going to be budgetary overruns. You're going to have an impact on your bottom line, your profit margins, and importantly, in this new landscape where resources are hard to find, you can have resource issues where now instead of dealing with value added items, your folks are having to chase quality issues and they're really stopping the production floor from moving forward. There's always that risk of non-compliance. Non-conforming products are going to be popping up on the floor. You're going to be lagging behind your whole system. Regulatory violations are a possibility. There's always the potential for a safety risk, especially if you're dealing with an environment with high voltage or heavy machinery. If you don't deal with these nonconformances or noncompliances in a regular, quick manner, you always pose the problem or you always pose risk to your folks on the floor of, getting hurt. There's a potential loss of business and inability to participate in future contracts because of audit failures. There's a potential for delay and increased costs, definitely. And then a really bad loss of certifications or licenses. If you have an out of control quality process, you can really lose future business, customer trust, and loyalty. And that reputation can be really, really hard to rebuild. Your business is constantly going to be operating in the slow lane in a manual or disparate system where things aren't connected. It is really, really difficult to scale up. Training people on those processes is really difficult. As new folks come onto the shop floor, you're spending your whole time trying to tell them which paper to use for this specific process. In a digital manufacturing system or a digital quality system, a lot of this stuff is automated to allow you to scale faster, train people up better, and utilize all your resources effectively. So Digitizing quality management for manufacturing efficiency. That's what we're really going to be talking about here today. Precision and compliance are non-negotiable at this point. A lot of folks have been able to get by on their legacy systems just because it's how things have been done. But as we scale into these new environments, and there's a big push to Industry 4.0, you really need to start looking at how to consolidate and make your floor operate as efficiently as possible. Without a purpose-built QMS, you're going to be lagging behind on your own process. You're not going to be able to deal with defects as effectively, and then your rising costs in your supply chain can really, really stymie your operations. And really, the solution is a QMS MES platform that can simplify your workflows, enhance your visibility, facilitate compliance with numerous standards out in the industry, and try to keep your business audit ready and ahead of all of your problems. So that's where TIP Technologies comes into play. TIP is a trusted and leading quality management system purpose-built for A&D manufacturers. It integrates with many named ERP systems to provide a single platform to connect your finance, manufacturing, supply chain, quality management, and shop floor execution systems. Really think of this as a one-stop shop to kind of get the whole production floor and quality system all in one spot that everybody can talk to, create actions off of. And we're going to go into some of those actions in a second here. So TIP is broken out into two specific product sets. There's Deltek TIPQA, which is a comprehensive quality management software. We offer 18 integrated modules to help with everything from advanced product quality planning down to training management. It is an a la carte system where you can pick what quality solutions you need to help shore up your processes. The idea is we're trying to help you build a solution that best fits your need. You don't have to get all 18 modules at once. What usually people do is they take the capabilities that they need right away and they start building that out. As we talk a little bit more about implementation, you'll get a little bit more info into that. But the idea is as you get new and evolving contract obligations, you can leverage our existing modules, some of the other ones, APQP, FMEA, to help build out your processes without having to get a whole new system. Just turn on another module and get that capability up and running. Deltek's TIP SFE is the second part of it. It is a shop floor execution, manufacturing execution system, separately licensed product, but it's fully integrated with the quality side, so that you have the full benefit of quality alongside manufacturing, open up inspections alongside manufacturing steps. Your non-conformances are right there at your fingertips. So if you do have an issue on the shop floor, you could just open something up really quick and generate those quality holds right there. Now, here's an overview of all of our modules. Of course, if you want to get more in depth into any of the ones that are listed here that we don't talk about today, reach out to anybody, any of our panelists. We're more than happy to get you some more information. But once again, we help with everything from advanced product quality planning down to training management. Some notable highlights that we're going to be going over today: supplier quality collaboration, the shop floor execution system, and then core quality in terms of non-conformance, corrective actions, inspections, and audit management. Yeah. So here's a slide that talks about the project life cycle for government contractors. You have to win the business, manage it, develop it, deliver it, and then measure it to win more business. TIP fits squarely in two areas of this cycle. Fits in the deliver phase, where purpose-built quality and shop floor solutions ensure timely project delivery within budget while meeting your compliance standards. And it fits within the measure side of it. You have industry specific dashboards and reports to track your health and create continuous improvement objectives, and continue to track your performance and make sure that you're operating with peak efficiency. And here's an overview of how we're actually connected to cost point. So essentially, what's happening in your ERP is you are generating all of the part information, BOM information, your vendor lists, work orders, POs, receipts, routings. TIP picks up on all of that information and then allows you to create work orders, receiving inspections, non-conformances, and then it sends back information bidirectionally back to the ERP in terms of completions, quantities, routing updates, requirement updates, to let both systems, operate in tandem. And then for the cost point ERP ecosystem, we also talk to another solution called shop floor time that will track actual clock ins and clock outs. So as you're working on the work orders within TIP SFE, you log into the work order, you clock in. SFT will track that time and automatically send it back to a time card within CostPoint to update the operators to make sure that they don't have to, at the end of the day, go true up their numbers. Their actual numbers are connected back to their time card based on what they've logged in for the day within TIP SFE. Now, we've talked quite a bit about CostPoint, but TIP also facilitates connections to a number of different ERP systems. We have a number of named interfaces, including Oracle, SAP, S/4HANA, and ECC6, as well as Microsoft Dynamics. Now, these named interfaces are bidirectional and they're used out regularly in the field, and it's something that is constantly getting updated and supported in that regard. We also have a flexible generic interface for any other ERP system or homegrown solution. Some other ERPs we've connected to include IFS, Sage, Epicor, Infor. These we build out, but we've done this a number of times. So if you do have an ERP system that isn't quite in our named interfaces, that shouldn't stop us from being able to connect to that. If you have that question, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to have a conversation about how those connections work and what you can do and how you can bring data back into TIP from another ERP system. So we've already talked a little bit about TIPQA, the integrated quality and the paperless shop floor of TIP SFE. We're going to get into that in a little bit more detail, but two other really big areas within TIP that I want to note before we get into a little breakout of the capabilities is the supplier quality collaboration. So TIP has a full approved vendor, approved supplier list that allows you to manage suppliers, track performance, achieve your compliance goals, generate scorecards, but it also facilitates your customer or your suppliers being able to log in and open nonconformance or answer corrective actions or complete supplier surveys. TIP has a full system to allow you to work in tandem with your suppliers and collaborate that way so that you guys are talking through an actual system versus emails. We also are compliance and audit ready. We support your audit readiness. The idea of having a digital QMS MES is that every action is recorded. The audit trails are immutable, and as government and industry standards evolve, the platform can evolve with that. We're always kind of up to date. We're updating things, as as certain compliance standards are getting revved. We're on top of that, and we're making sure that we're front and foremost with those. So here are some examples that I wanted to go through. Integrated quality in manufacturing. This is an example of an inspection sequence of the system. You can track quality and shop floor processes within this single system, gaining end-to-end visibility by tracking your quality metrics, supplier performance, and shop activities in real time. Integrating with the named interfaces for a connected and audit-ready system. You want to accurately assess real-time information to reduce risks and optimize operations. As you go through and you update your receiving inspections, as you go through and you update your work orders to sign off specific steps, it's updating the ERP in real time to say what's been signed off, what steps have been signed off, what steps are left. But you're also taking those real-time data connections that live in database now that you can pull from and get accurate information about if certain things are trending in the right direction. If you've got measurements that are out of control, we have an SPC module that'll keep track of those things for you. So automating a lot of these processes that are tough to handle on the day to day with everything going on. Using this system allows for faster, smarter workflows. Once again, as I was just talking about, automating quality and production processes, being able to open a nonconformance directly from a work order and pulling in all of the applicable header information automatically, waterfalling all that data down saves so much time in the long run. People aren't having to multi-enter things. If something exists and you open a record from another record, it's pulling down all that applicable information. You're able to get real-time quality and shop floor data with your audit trails. Once again, collaboration with suppliers is built into the software. If you want to give your suppliers access, you have full ability to do that. Give them reduced access to the system so they can help you and help you know when things are going wrong in their shop floor without, having to wait for their emails to come in. You can also drive productivity, reduce delays and errors, automated workflows. Once again, you're reducing the amount of typos that are in the system. And generally, when people find it easy to open up actions like receiving inspections or actions like non-conformances or corrective actions, they're more likely to do them and close them out because it's not a delay to their process if it's built alongside the actual work order that they're working on. It's just another thing that they can do to make sure everything's getting done right. Paperless shop floor is huge. TIP SFE allows you to automate work instructions and track quality digitally. You can track your parts and components at every stage in production, build traceable configurations, reduce your errors, rework, and delays with those real-time updates in your digital records. And then everything is, once again, audit trailed. It's super easy to keep everything organized. Work orders are talking back to your ERP system, but all of your build instructions, all of your data attachments, files, everything from receiving inspection all the way to the final closeout is accessible through the work order screen. So it's really easy to build out your end item data packages, and it's really easy for folks to, make sure everything is ready to be closed out when the work order is ready to be closed out. If you've opened inspections or non-conformances, the system's going to alert you to them before you try to close out that work order. So you're making sure all actions have been done. Effective parts genealogy, I've been talking about it a lot. It's something I really, really think the system handles very well, monitoring all your parts from incoming inspection to final product. Um, you're able to build out what we call traceable configurations, or in other terminology, as built BOMs, where you can say, hey, I have a top level component, and this is the BOM that's tied to that top level component, and these are all the subcomponents that I put in to build this. I open my bucket, I put the parts together, and in the system, I can record what parts I put in what assemblies. Um, this system is really good at remembering which subcomponents or raw materials have open or closed nonconformances against them. And if you've attached anything from an earlier time frame, like in a receiving inspection, you attached a CFC, X-ray results, just any documentation that you got from your vendor, you can actually pull that forward automatically into the final product so that when you go to submit these documents or you go to submit your final product to a customer, you have all of your CFCs at your fingertips. Um, this is really good for quickly identifying and recalling faulty parts. Because you have this traceability stored, it's super easy to query the system for all of this information and use reports to spot your trends and improve processes. You're also keeping an electronic record of every part and every configuration of the part. So as you remove subassemblies, you'll always know which subassembly was removed by who at what point and what it was replaced with. So very easy for audit and compliance. This all kind of falls in line with building a resilient supply chain. Just about everything I've talked about has some bearing on that, but it really, the supplier tools that, I've been talking about throughout are super important for that. You can map the supply chain down through all of your tiers. You can implement your effective supplier performance strategy and mitigate risks. There's a full scorecarding system that you can access, that you can vet supplier quality every month. You can also improve your supplier relationship. If you have those suppliers that you know are next level that you want to bring into the fold a little bit more, give them access to your system so that they can set up non-conformances tied to their products. They can create those vendor information requests. Hey, we had a failure on the shop floor, and because we're such a good supplier, we want you to know ahead of time of the failure. What do you want us to do with this? Having those early warnings from your supply base can really help you build some resiliency. You're tackling the problems sometimes even in pre-production runs of supplier setups, and you're not waiting for the supplier to send an email. If you deputize them and help build them into your quality system, they're your first line of defense when you're actually building up parts. Really, really nice for achieving your compliance and industry standards and requirements. You also have, once again, full audit trail capabilities. You can digitally store and manage all your compliance documents and all of your documents in one point, in one place. TIP keeps these documents in perpetuity. You're meeting all of those life cycle designations as well. However long you need to keep the documents, TIP will keep them in place. You can track and verify your compliance with your built-in audit tools, see how the parts have been built up, check your audit results, have corrective actions been closed out. We support ISO, AS9100, FAA, DCMA requirements, and more. Um, and your user configurable audits, you have the ability to create user configurable audits that align with all your organizational needs. So as you evolve and you have more audit requirements, our audit management module stands at the ready to update and evolve with you. What really sets TIP apart from other solutions and just the ecosystem in general? It really is the configurability. It's super easy. It is front end user point and click, drag new fields on, drag old fields off. It's super easy to set up these workflows. Shop floors integrated with quality. If you need to open a nonconformance against a work order, you're not going to a separate database. You're not going to a separate screen. It's just all built in right in line there. The workflow is really intuitive for folks who've been on the shop floor. There's OCR for inspection planning. We have a full characteristic mapping tool where you can upload drawings and parse out the requirements and create inspection plans off of them for receiving an in-process inspection. There is full parts genealogy that traces through the entire system. So if you're keeping things in line from receiving inspection all the way to final builds, the system's going to reward you for that. It's going to pull all the documentation forward, show you any of the nonconformances that you have generated. I like to say it's really good to get that warm fuzzy at the end of the process that we've done everything correctly and there's no open actions. We have a time and temperature controlled materials module that I just wanted to touch on briefly. If you have something with shelf life or you have freezer requirements or you have cure times that you really want to make sure are stringently met, we have a system that overlays on top of cost points or ERP inventory modules that allows you to addend deeper level material requirements and gives you a check-in, check-out feature for freezers, and all sorts of other different areas on the floor. You check those items out, you check them back in. The system keeps track of how much life those items have left, and it really is something that a lot of folks who use carbon fibers really find very helpful in their process. Finally, we are an FAA approved QMS, so something to keep in mind there. TIP Technologies delivers value in a number of different ways. Full visibility and control, which I've talked about at length, the connectivity back to ERPs, quality and shop floor in one scalable system with standardized processes and automated workflows. You have your paperless operations, eliminate your manual processes, get everything into one system with automated triggers, and then you're always audit ready. When an auditor comes in, you have your audit trails defined. You know that you don't have anything to worry about there. Everything is at the touch of a click of a mouse. We are used in the top 8 of 10 A&D firms, about 80% of them, and we've had 30 plus years as the leading quality assurance software for A&D. You're in good company when you're using TIP. And then just to recap, you can manage your complex quality and shop floor processes in A&D manufacturing. We're industry specific, purpose built, project centric, compliance and audit ready, and we really have the best in breed of integrations to other ERP systems.
Thank you, Will. Before I introduce Manny, I would like to provide a brief overview of Infotek Consulting. Infotek is an award-winning Deltek partner that specializes in ERP implementations with a focus on digital transformation and cybersecurity. We believe in partnering with our clients to provide full implementation lifecycle support, starting with the initial system configuration, all the way through developing custom reports and dashboards, approval workflows, and integrations. We are also one of the few Deltek partners capable of implementing the full TIP technology suite and can provide FedRAMP hosting in our Azure GCC High environment if needed. Now, I would like to hand things over to Manny to introduce herself and provide a brief demo of TIPQA.
Thank you, Jonathan. Manny Stevenson here. I am the Senior TIP Consultant here at Infotek Consulting. I've been working with the TIP product now for about 6 years, but I also have about 6 years of manufacturing experience as I used to be a quality technician in the electronic industry. So we'll be going through a TIP application demo and we'll see two different views of that TIP application. We'll walk through as a quality technician and then we'll also walk through as a quality manager. So within this application now, I am logged in as a quality technician. As you can see on my module listing here, I'm kind of limited in what I can actually do as a quality tech. I can process in-process inspections if I needed to. I could create non-conformances if I needed to, and then also complete receiving inspections as well. So as a quality technician, my day-to-day activities could be that I need to inspect for parts that are being received in out in the receiving area. So what I would do in the TIP application here is I would go directly into the receiving inspection module. And since TIP can have an integration to any ERP system mentioned by Will earlier, you would be pulling in or seeing the exact same information from your ERP system. So TIP is basically collecting that data from the ERP and setting it up in the TIP application for you to view. So this receiver here that I have has all of the same information directly from my ERP system. So I have my part number, my part revision, my supplier information, my receiver number, and any important dates that I would need directly coming from my ERP. Now, for the receiving inspection module itself, this module has a full inspection plan that you can create in a few different ways. So our inspection plan here can be very complex if you needed it to be, or it could be very simple as I have here. So you can create criteria here that is considered an attribute type of criteria where you're just kind of checking for damages, checking for overall condition of the part. And with that, you can just identify that this is a pass or fail. We can also have instructions or criteria here that is more specific to that part itself. So maybe you need to take a measurement value here as I have tolerances that I need to fall within. And if I fall outside of that tolerance like I have here, I can be identified of that right away. So it's red, it's letting me know, hey, this is out of tolerance that I have listed right here. We need to do some type of action for this particular criteria here. So on my next page in the results tab, what I can do since I do have a failure in my inspection is that I can open up a non-conformance directly from this receiving inspection screen. So I'll first identify that I have a non-conforming piece. So I can identify that I have one piece that needs a non-conformance. And down here at the very bottom, you can see I actually already generated a non-conformance. I have it linked directly to my receiving inspection here. And with this icon right here, I can go ahead and click that, and it'll take me directly into my nonconformance. So I'm not switching back and forth between modules. I can basically access nonconformance directly from receiving inspection. When you're using this type of integration between the two modules, you'll see that you can actually see the same information that you would have on your receiving inspection. So users aren't doing double entry. They would basically be copying over all of the same information from that receiving inspection automatically. So you're not having to worry about users mistyping information for you. It's going to pre-populate everything for you down the line. So usually as a receiving inspector, I may not go too far with this nonconformance. I may just be identifying it and then reassigning it over to someone like a quality manager that I have up here. So once I'm done with this nonconformance here, I can actually just choose this done button. And it's going to take me directly back into my receiving inspection, as you can see here. So this nonconformance is always going to be tied to my receiving inspection. If I look up my nonconformance, I'll see that it is tied to that receiving inspection here. I can also keep up with this nonconformance as I have a status here for that nonconformance listed here. There are also parameters in place where you can limit users from actually completing this receiving inspection because we do technically have a non-conformance open for that product at that moment. So outside of just receiving inspections, as a technician, I may be actually working out on the shop floor. We can switch over to the shop floor execution side of TIPQA. And you can see up here at the very top, I can toggle between those two sides there using this drop-down list. So in the QA side, I just have quality modules. When I switch over to the shop floor side here, you'll see your shop floor execution side of the TIP application. So shop floor does open up directly into the main shop floor page, which is what most users are actually going to use. So as a quality tech, I'm working on a particular MO that I have. Maybe I need to complete an inspection as part of my processing for that MO. So I can go ahead and query up here for that work order and then begin reviewing the instructions that I have for this particular MO. So within shop floor itself, you do have access to a few of the other modules that are actually on that QA side. So TIP SFE itself is kind of its own standalone module, but it does also work with the in-process inspection module, the non-conformance module, serialized test and inspection, along with a couple of others. So in my shop floor page here, I have basically my electronic traveler. So most users are used to having a paper-based traveler. You have all of your steps, you're signing off on those individual steps by hand, and those particular travelers could get lost. Some users may have more access to it than others. With TIP here, all you would have to do is log into your application and you would easily be able to see what status that work order is on at that moment. So I could see here, I'm all the way at my step order number 31. I started the in-process inspection status here, and I can see I have 2 more steps down here at the bottom that need to be completed. So it's a very quick view for you to see what the current status is of your work order. If you could see here, you can also see that there are accesses to other modules in your system. So I have different methods here for my operations. I have normal manufacturing steps, and then I also have in-process inspection steps, which will utilize that in-process inspection module. And then I do also have access to non-conformance like this here. So again, same kind of thing with the receiving inspection module. I don't have to switch back and forth between modules if I don't need to. I can stay within that same page and access different modules without having to go through too many different clicks. So as a quality manager, if I log out here and log in as a quality manager, I'll have somewhat of a different view of the TIP application. You'll see that the quality manager could have access to the full application suite that TIP offers. So you can see here, I have a lot more modules than what was listed for my quality technician. If I was quality manager, maybe I need to come in here and do an audit, or maybe I need to start a ECN record or create a corrective action. I can access all of that information. If you could see here, you can also have a dashboard that you can access your records against as well. So my quality technician created 2 non-conformances for me. They reassigned it to me. I can look directly into my dashboard here and see that I have 2 records assigned to me within non-conformance here. So I can click on this icon right here, and it's going to take me directly into the non-conformance module and to those 2 specific records that are currently assigned to me at the moment. So I can identify which record I need to work on, and I can continue processing this record as far along as I would need to. Now, also as a quality manager, I would have a different view within the SFE side. Usually as a manager, you may be assigning operation steps to different users. TIP does allow you to actually assign operation steps to individual users that you are currently supervising over. So within my dashboard, within the SFE side here, it is going to be slightly different than what is available on the QA side. You are going to see that you have a work assignments grid here, and then also an operator status grid as well. So as long as you are considered a supervisor and you have users uh, who have you listed as a supervisor within the TIP application, you could see here, I could go ahead and assign each of these operation steps here with each of my different work orders here to different users. And I can also keep up with that operator status as well if I were utilizing the clock in, clock off features that Will mentioned earlier today. So kind of rounding out this demo here, if I go back to my slide deck here, we have our implementation process, which is generally broken out into different stages. So as Will mentioned before, TIP has a ton of different modules that you can choose from. So if you're choosing a lot of modules here, it is a little bit easier to review and implement when you go through a more of a staged approach. There's a little bit of a learning curve with the TIP application. So if you just kind of start out with a few different modules at a time, kind of get used to the settings that are within TIP. This is kind of a general workflow that we could roll out TIP with if you had some of these modules. So usually with a stage one type of rollout, you would always start out with the access control module. A lot of customers will use the receiving inspection module first because they want to begin receiving products within the TIP application. And then usually nonconformances are set up, corrective actions, and then also you have document management available as well. So if you want to move all of your documents over from maybe a SharePoint site or just local drives, you can input all of that information in the tip side. As a stage two, we can implement more of your management modules. So a supplier management, audit management, the gauge and tool module, and then also training management as well. And then lastly, in a stage three, we typically want to roll out more of your manufacturing pieces of modules. So you have your in-process inspection, you have your shop floor piece, and then you also have serialized test and inspection as well. Now for our general timeline of implementation, we can kind of roll it out in um, these four phases here. The first phase is usually just planning and engineering review. So with this, we'll have a kickoff call just to discuss some of the requirements for the TIP application. Are you going to be hosted on-prem? Do you want to be hosted by an outside provider such as Infotek? We'll also review some of your processes, your current processes, and how they relate to the TIPQA modules. We'll talk about expectations of the TIPQA module, and then also discuss if you do want to go through with a phased approach or if you did want to go through with a single go live. In the phase two, we have our configuration and training piece. So with this, we are training admins of TIP and your identified SMEs. We'll begin configuring sessions as well. So with the TIP application, we have a ton of different options for you to configure the modules. We have a ton of parameters. And we also have UI configurations where you can edit screens exactly how you want to see it. With that, we also have testing in place. Within phase three here, we have our finalization and then testing. So with this, we will finalize all of our configuration settings. We'll begin copying over settings into your production environment. We'll do our final load of your users and roles, and then also conduct end user training at this point. Lastly, with our phase four, we have our go live and support. So you'll identify your go live date previously in phase one usually. We'll pick a week to go live with, and then we'll provide support for you during that go live. If you did go through with a phased approach, we'll repeat steps 2 through 4 again. So the timeline summary here is very general. Typically a kickoff is just 1 day. Engineering review could take up to a week. With our install and ERP, depending on if you are on-prem or being hosted, it could take up to a week as well. Training and user acceptance training is going to be the longest time. We're doing all of our configurations. We're making sure that the application is exactly how you want to use it. Then with end user training, just about a week or so, really dependent on how your users feel with the TIP application, how comfortable they end up getting. And then with go live support, it's typically about a week long before we start our next phase or before it's the end of the go live there. So with a typical project duration, we could be live up and running with TIP within 60 days. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Jonathan.
Thank you, Manny, and thank you, Will, for walking us through TIPQA today. So this last slide kind of just sums up, some of the questions to ask yourself to determine if TIPQA could be a good fit for your company. I will share this deck with everyone watching today, so these questions will be available. And also there is a questionnaire at the bottom as well that you can fit out as well if you want to help determine if TIPQA is a good fit for your company and what those requirements are. If anyone has questions or interested in learning more about TIPQA, please reach out to our email address listed, which is info@infotekconsulting.net, and we'll be happy to set up a meeting. Thank you again for watching. I hope that everyone found the content insightful and left with an improved understanding of the current environment for quality management and how TIPQA can solve many of the common challenges. Thank you again, and hope everyone has a great rest of your day.